Good morning, player profiler. NFL football Sunday. Let's go. We're up, right? We're up. We've got our coffee, right? I have the hair that I woke up with. So from now on, every starter stream, 8 a.m. starter stream, we're just going to go with the hair that I woke up with. This is the hair that I had upon waking up. That's it. So, that's what we're doing. That's what's happening. And, enjoy my haggard, tired appearance. I will enjoy your questions. Keep the questions coming in the chat. I am familiarized with the injury statuses of most players who are questionable, likely to play, who are doubtful, who are out, who are probable, who have been removed from the injury report. I think I've got my arms around this slate. I know our projections. They're very good, so check them out, playerprofiler.com. Check out the player rankings. You can go straight to the Flex tab for this week, and you can see who you want to start at running back versus wide receiver in your flex positions. We lay it all out there, sorted by projected points. We also have the implied Vegas points. We give you the matchup, so the opponent they're facing versus their position. Last week's snap share, we give you everything you need. So that's right there in the player rankings, so you can make your own decisions. But if you would like me to help you with these decisions, throw them in the chat, lay it out there. You lay it out, I'll put it together here, and we'll get going. So off we go. Charbonnet season, yes. Charbonnet. It is. I was wrong. I thought that Kenneth Walker would play through this oblique injury. He's not going to. He's tough. He likes to play through. He can play through things, but these soft tissue obliques, and then last year with the groin, just not something that he could play through. And it's going to be Zach Charbonnet. I think we're going to get the bare minimum from Zach Charbonnet. Zach Charbonnet is a bare minimum type player, but don't forget, Alexander Mattison gave you the bare minimum in Minnesota, and that was like 25 fantasy points in some weeks. So the bare minimum can be great. Just depends on the situation and the volume. So we have the Seahawks are at the Patriots. So I don't love that. That's a 38-point total. I don't love that. So you're going to get people that are playing Charbonnet just because, it's the Patriots. It's a game that the Seahawks are favored. But the game total leaves just very few fantasy points for anyone to score. Patriots want to drag that game into the mud. How did Chase Brown and Zach Moss do last week? Spoiler alert, not that good. So we are going to be below consensus this week on Zach Charbonnet, and so I'm not saying run out and start him. He is going to be a starter. He's going to be a starter that's maybe 75% opportunity share. It's going to be hard to bench him. A lot of you have great running back options, and so when we have questions about Charbonnet, probably start Charbonnet, given that we went 0 RB in most cases or hero RB. So you're not going to have many better options. Like, do you want to start Jaleel McLaughlin over Zach Charbonnet? Hell no. Right? But Jaleel McLaughlin is also in a game with a 36.5-point total. Gross. Get out of here. Now, there was a question about Jameson Williams versus Marvin Harrison. And this is interesting. Jameson Williams is questionable. And this is one of those questionables. This is not like a Jaden Reed maintenance day questionable with a calf injury that he played through last week. This is a new ankle injury that he sustained. Jameson Williams sustained a brand new ankle injury last week. He had it taped up, and now he's struggling to get it to have the right amount of mobility. I don't love it, but I love the 51-point total. I also love the 50-point total for Cardinals against the Rams at home. You're not going to bench Marvin Harrison in the home game against the Rams. You drafted Marvin Harrison to play him against the Rams at home. This was the game. Okay? So this is it. This is it. From now on, if you bench him and he plays well, you're going to look foolish and you're going to feel foolish and you are going to be foolish. Think about all the Marvin Harrison Week 1 games that Jameson Williams has stacked up throughout his career in the NFL. Marvin Harrison has one of those games, one, and you're going to bench him for the guy that had bagel after bagel. One target game after one target game for 2 years. You people with it's real memory loss that you have. You've suffered some real memory loss, some of you, with Jameson Williams. And so I'm in a position on the Starter Stream Show on Player Profiler where I'm saying start Marvin Harrison, a player I despise. So I don't hate players. I hate ADPs. You all know that. This has been a Podfatherism for many years, so much so that Matthew Berry quoted me in one of his seminal works. The seminal works of Matthew Berry, yes. But this Marvin Harrison Jr., I'm really getting to a point of dislike, of real dislike. Because my position has always been you can't hate these guys that are putting their mental health, their physical health at risk for our entertainment. That's just rude, right? So you have to respect the hell out of these guys for doing that. Marvin Harrison, so far, as we've seen, is taking the soft route to the NFL and currently in the NFL. So he's not really been doing that yet. He's just kind of going through the motions so far and trying to defraud every organization and entity that he interacts with in any way and does business with. Not everyone, but allegedly there's been fraud. And so I'm now at a point where I'm like, okay, all right, maybe this is the one. Maybe this is it. Maybe we crossed that Rubicon for the first time and actually dislike a player personally. I'm not there yet, but we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. We'll see what he says after the game. We'll see what happens. This is a great week because we get to see big week for Marvin Harrison. Big week for Marvin Harrison in his career. And if you drafted him, you have to play him. You do. You just do. So we have David Montgomery against Tampa. Brian Robinson against the Giants. And we have Jerome Ford against Jacksonville. That's a tough one. That, at first you're like, oh, Jerome Ford. Right? And then if we go to that particular game, so let's look at this game. Browns are at the Jaguars. That's a 41.5 point total. Jaguars are favored by more than a field goal. However, the Commanders are at home. They're favored by a field goal. They're playing the Giants. This is interesting. Aaron Jones had a reintroduction to the league game, reminding everybody how good he is last week against the Giants. I'm starting Brian Robinson. I think it's important that we get out ahead of this Brian Robinson and just start him. In the game situation he was facing, where they were in comeback mode, he's still putting up 15-plus fantasy points. What about the games where he's enjoying the positive game script? Think about that. The answer is Brian Robinson. Now, again, David Montgomery, what a game. Right? What a game. But we don't know how that game script's going to play out. They could be coming from behind a little bit. he might not get the carry volume that you want. We don't know what the touch distribution is going to be between Montgomery and Gibbs. I was surprised. I was prepared for Gibbs to start the takeover, and it didn't happen. That was the risk of drafting Gibbs, was you didn't know what the touch distribution would be in Detroit, and we still don't know what it's going to be. Home game, this is the game to play David Montgomery, but it would be between Montgomery and Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson has less competition, and just the implied total for the Lions is so high, right? They're 7-point favorites with a 51-point total. Think about that for a second. That makes it tough. I can't believe there's a question where I would actually not go Brian Robinson. I'm going to go Brian Robinson. This is the guy I believe in. I think he has more reception equity than David Montgomery. I think he's also going to be involved inside the 5-yard line. The argument is that, okay, if he's inside the 5-yard line, Jaden Daniels is going to run it in. So I think that's the final argument for David Montgomery there. Oh man, we got to go. We got to go to the rankings. We got to check the rankings. We got to see what the rankings say. Oh, I thought it was an easy one. But it was actually Bijan. Bijan was up there near the top, and I was like, oh, that's an easy one. It's Bijan. No. No, it's not. Our rankings have David Montgomery. Our rankings are saying you got to go David Montgomery. I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with that. Oh, I wish they hadn't said that. I wish that the rankings were higher on Brian Robinson, but it is a game that could devolve into a shit show. And I think that's the risk. There's a little bit of risk there. Home game against Tampa. There's really not a lot of risk. There's a ton of touchdown upside for David Montgomery. So, okay. I thought it was pretty easy. Going to go ahead and play Robinson over Ford, given the game situation. Not as easy when you put Robinson up against Montgomery. You got to go Montgomery. God. Tough stuff. Devontae Adams or wait for A.J. Brown status. Wait for the A.J. Brown status. So A.J. Brown has a hamstring injury, which was a late pop-up, which we don't like. The late pop-up on the injury report late in the week. Suddenly, Friday, no A.J. Brown at practice. A.J. Brown questionable. So he's officially questionable. And the worry is that Monday Night Football, now all of a sudden they come out today and say, no, it's actually game time decision. So just play Devontae Adams. What's the big deal? I just think you play Devontae Adams. I think you play it safe. Because it's not like Devontae Adams doesn't have upside. Like against the Ravens, they're going to be in comeback mode. The implied total is awful for the Raiders. I know that. I get that. Oh, God. I mean, it's a nice problem to have, right? It's a nice problem. Nice zero RB problem to have. Eagles are at home against the Falcons on Monday Night Football. Man, that's a game. That's a nice game. That's a nice game. But you look at what Rashee Rice did last week against the Ravens. Can't you just start Devontae Adams in your wide receiver position and then play it by ear on Monday Night Football and maybe sub in A.J. Brown and flex? What kind of team format is this where you even have to make this decision? Is this even fantasy when you're deciding between Devontae Adams and A.J. Brown? I mean, at some point you're like, wait, what are we even doing here? Why is this league even forcing you to make this decision? Get some more flex. Jesus Christ. What? It's crazy. I mean, Darnell Mooney Monday night. right, would be an option if A.J. Brown doesn't go. The thing is, A.J. Brown is not 100% anyway. So it's not like you're even getting full strength A.J. Brown. I don't love it. I don't love this. I don't love this hamstring situation for A.J. Brown because, again, even if he plays, maybe he's a decoy. And you have Devontae Adams, for Christ's sake. Oh, we have a soccer question. Did you watch Chelsea's match yesterday, 1-0 versus Bournemouth? Spoiler alert. I mean, I don't have time to watch soccer in real time. I don't even know the scores. I watch after the fact. And so I can't even tell, did Chelsea win or lose? I don't even know. They won against Bournemouth. Why would you ask me that question? I assume that was a question because Chelsea lost. Is this someone who likes Chelsea because they know I don't like Chelsea and they're like waving around a 1-0 win against Bournemouth, who lost their striker in the transfer window? Really? I don't know if it was a transfer window, but they lost their striker. Saluki, I want to say. Is it Saluki? Something like that. So they lost their striker, and that was unfortunate because they're going to be in the relegation zone at some point in the season. If you know, this is what happens. These teams get rated. These championship level teams get rated, and then the next thing you know, you think they're on a good run, and then a couple of their star players, they're in the Premier League with you for a couple of years, and then suddenly they're playing for Chelsea, they're playing for Arsenal, and that's just life. That's just life in that the bottom end of the Premier League. Wait on A.J. Brown or use Pittman Jr. There's a lot of people that are wondering what they do. Do they wait on A.J. Brown or do they use player X? I'm leaning using player X as long as that player can command a lot of targets. Michael Pittman is the number one receiver there. He had a huge target share last week. He's going to get a huge target share again this week. Unfortunately, because it's Malik Willis, his games could be like a Josh Jacobs-y, grind it out style contest. So I don't love it, but I love the Colts are going on the road. They're going to have to throw more on the road, and that means Michael Pittman. So Michael Pittman, he's the line, right? Michael Pittman's the line where, okay, if A.J. Brown doesn't go. So here's what you can do. I mean, if you have A.J. Brown, you could go and pick up the next guy up, right, for the Eagles and just make sure you have him. I mean, you obviously don't have Devontae Smith. That would be the easiest pivot ever, right? But, I mean, is it Johnny Wilson? I mean, who is even next? Let me know in the chat. Is it Johnny Wilson? Who the hell is it? Who is number 2? After Devontae Smith, if A.J. Brown misses time. This is crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. ETN or Ford? ETN or Ford? Again, I don't love Ford this week. I know that our rankings have Ford higher than I expected, but I don't love the game situation. I don't love that they're already talking about voiding Deshaun Watson's contract. That's not good. For any of us that drafted Deshaun Watson, whenever you hear contract void talk after week 1, it's not great. It's not good. Nope. So in this particular case, the problem is ETN is also in this game, right? ETN's also in this game, and you got to go forward there. You got to go forward. It's a bad game, but Ford is getting more opportunities. There was a real warning sign with this Tank Bigsby carry share last week that just I don't trust it. We can trust Jerome Ford. We can trust the Cleveland offensive line. We can trust that this is how they want to run their offense. They want to give Ford touches. There's now less options in the passing game with no David Njoku. That might mean a little bit more reception equity for Jerome Ford. So I go Jerome Ford there. I like Jerome Ford this week. I do. I prefer guys that are in situations that I think are a little more plumb, like Brian Robinson and especially David Montgomery. Ford or Najee? Well, that one's easy. That's Ford easily. I mean, Najee's not the type of guy that you're even going to be considering over a Jerome Ford. Najee's the kind of guy. It's like Najee, Devin Singletary, Najee or McLaughlin. Like, that's the decision point. And then you would go Najee. Actually, the guy where I think where the tension point is with Najee is Najee Harris or J.K. Dobbins. And in this case, I'm going Dobbins, man. I'm going Dobbins. You got Warren is another week healthier. So Warren may start to come in and cannibalize a few more touches. And it's one of those 36-point total games against Denver that I just don't want to be a part of. I don't want players in those games. Dynasty Rehab says 8 a.m. on a Sunday. The Podfather is live. Hit the like button. Yeah, do that. Hit the like button. That's cool. That's cool. I'm up. I'm at him. Hopefully you can see. Can you see like more blood circulating in my face? Some of the wrinkles, some of those crusty wrinkles that 40-year-olds have when they wake up, starting to melt away. I'm starting to look a little more vibrant as the show is going along. I'm feeling better. I'm feeling more energized. Cooks, Ridley, or Lockett. So Brandon Cooks. This is a good one. Brandon Cooks, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Lockett. I don't typically like Calvin Ridley because I don't like Calvin Ridley. I'm not a Calvin Ridley guy. I don't like Calvin Ridley. Last time anyone checks my record, you could see that I'm not a Calvin Ridley guy. But I'm scrolling in the rankings and I'm looking for this player named Calvin Ridley going up against the Jets secondary, and no, we're not playing him. We're not playing him. This was one of the problems with drafting Calvin Ridley. Was it's Jalen Johnson and then Sauce Gardner to start the year? Please, I would actually rather have Lockett. I'd rather start Lockett this week. But my point from earlier is, I've just always thought Calvin Ridley's overrated. I like him as a person. His whole story is super inspiring. But that doesn't mean I have to like him at his cost in fantasy football. Okay? It's very different than a player like a Marvin Harrison Jr., who I am starting to develop an active contempt for. Very different. So, final answer is, I think, pretty straightforward. I actually think it's Cooks. I think that Cooks is one of those situations where we got the information, right? We saw the flop. We got the information. We got to see everybody bet. We got to see, okay, this is where everyone's at. Probably, maybe, right? Cooks is good. Cooks is good for another year. And now they're short Ferguson. Now there's less options. It's just like in Cleveland. There's just a little bit more reception equity heading Brandon Cook's way. You got to love this. This is the player. This is a game you want to be a part of. It's easy. It's easy. Hubbard, Ridley, or Jaleel McLaughlin. Oh my God. That is interesting. We'll have to look this up. I'm going to look this one up because whenever you cross positions, it becomes very difficult. That's why we have the flex tab on the player rankings. We do have Ridley in the rankings ahead of Jaleel McLaughlin, but by like the smallest of margins. I just happen to like Jaleel McLaughlin as a player. I think he has great upside. I don't see a lot of upside in the Tennessee offense against the Jets. I think it has a real bagel possibility, and I'm not into it. So I would actually go McLaughlin regardless. And then the other option, I believe, was Hubbard No, we're not playing Hubbard this week. I hated the opportunity share distribution between Hubbard and Miles Sanders. I thought it was a travesty. I had started Hubbard in leagues because I didn't have any other choices. I didn't get Ford in those leagues. Thankfully, I got more Ford than Hubbard with my extreme 0 RB teams. Malik Neighbors, JSN or BTJ? Okay, JSN? What? Jackson Smith and Jigba? Is that what that's supposed to be? Is that the JSN? You're considering him or Neighbors? Or even Brian Thomas? No, this is Neighbors season. We're playing Neighbors. He's going against the Commanders on the road. There's no other reason why you have Neighbors than to play him this week. Fucking people. Honestly. What are you even thinking? Never play him then. It's like with Marvin Harrison. Why'd you draft him, man? You're going to draft him to give up on him after 1 week? In the game he's going against the Rams? What are you thinking? What are you doing? I'm looking at Joe Burrow's frosted tips right now. Pretty good. He looks pretty good. I got to think that might be a factor in whether we play Joe Burrow this week. Happy to take any questions about Joe Burrow in the chat. Rest of season to Algier or Iosivos? Interesting question. We know that T. Higgins is out or doubtful out this week. This could be a Iosivos week. Very, very, very could be. It was a great question. Good Bengals-related question right when I needed it, right when I asked for it. It's perfect. Against the Chiefs this week. Pretty cool. You're not going to bench him this week, right? You're going to play him. If you have Iosivos, you have him because you have a multiple flex positions. You start 3 receivers, probably. It's hard for me to imagine you have a better option than Iosivos this week against the Chiefs. This is the week to... You would never play him. If you're not playing him this week, you'll never play him. So drop him. If you're not starting Iosivos, drop him. What do you think? Next week, Higgins is back. What do you think's going to happen? And you can't drop Algier. Okay? You can't drop Algier. So it sounds like this person is putting these players on their bench. Okay? Let me ask you a question. This is an important starter stream question. Think about best case scenario. Okay? Best case scenario. What can happen? And what's the probability of that happening? Right? Let's think about it in terms of like a poker hand. Okay, you have 3-4 offsuit, or you have king queen suited. Okay? Now, Tyler Algier is king queen suited. Right? Where Iosivos, there's going to be particular scenarios where you could actually flop the nuts. There may be one particular hand where this takes it down. Like, it comes up, ace 2-5, whatever. Right? Well, that's this week for Iosivos against the Chiefs. This is the ace 2-5 week. Okay? But it's a very limited set of circumstances and upside where there's a lot of other ways you can get beat by that hand. Most of the time, you're going to get beat. You catch a pair, you're going to get beat. You could even catch trips and get beat. I've seen that plenty of times. Trips is not a set. Whereas, think about the upside of your king, queen suited. All the different delicious hands that could come out of that. That's Tyler Algier. So even if you think, oh, well, this week, Iosivos could bank me a little extra trade equity, the risk is that Bijan Robinson goes down and you have a literal royal flush in a running back. And you beat everybody. for the rest of the year. You're going to give that up? You're going to drop that guy? Because you might get some incremental gains in Yoshivos and maybe some extra trade equity, and maybe that could get you from Tajay Spears to Tony Pollard in trade, or some fucking cares. Never drop Algier. My God, man. I hope I explained that. So never have to get this question from any of you ever again. Dropping Algier. You realize how easy this is for me? You realize how easy this is? I have to watch you all stumble around and fuck it up. Professor Lambeau. Dropping Tyler Algier. Or even considering it. It's ridiculous. Good question. I love this question. Worthy or Pickens? So this is interesting. Does Worthy have a lot of upside this week? Yeah, he does. He really does. So if I were to type it into our trusty rankings here, Xavier Worthy has some upside for sure. But not the nuclear level upside that if you are the number one receiver, what you have. Now, the problem is this offense and this game. Not great, right? Not great. But Pickens he's it. He's the air yards monster. He could lead the league in air yard share this year. And it feels sexy to play Worthy against Cincinnati and what could be a shootout. And then here's what happens a lot of times. This game doesn't shoot out like we thought it would, like it could. And Rashee Rice is the true number one. Now, I know there's no Marquise Brown this week, and that's very good news for Worthy. Lots of upside for him. In fact, I think you would play him over a bunch of players that we have projected ahead of him just based on the upside alone. Like, you would play him over Calvin Ridley. You would play him over Christian Kirk. You'd play him over Tyler Lockett. And then you start to consider him in the Brian Thomas, Jameson Williams zone. That's when you start considering Xavier Worthy. Pickens is in a different level. Pickens is in a level, you start him every week. If a guy is going to be number one in air yard share and, incredible catch rate, especially when you think about air yards adjusted catch rate, which I don't even know what that is. I just made that up, but it sounds good. And that's a great thing for Pickens. He's awesome. You can't bench Pickens. I don't care if it's the Broncos. Olave or shoot for a big game from Neighbors? Okay. Olave, right? The nice thing is that they could be in comeback mode, but the Saints looked really good. And Rashid Shaheed was very involved. And there's a lot of weapons that they're getting involved. Foster Moreau, I believe, was removed from the injury report. Malik Neighbors is the guy. He's all they have. And they're on the road against Washington. I know Daniel Jones didn't look good, but a lot of quarterbacks don't look good in certain games. Like, he didn't look worse than Kirk Cousins. He was about as bad as Joe Burrow, but those guys have a lot more, well, at least Joe Burrow has a lot more job security. You're going back to Neighbors. This is the thing I need to shake all you people. Don't drop Tyler Algier. I'm shaking all of you. You don't drop Tyler Algier, and you don't bench Malik Neighbors. And you don't bench Marvin Harrison, as much as I don't like him. I don't respect him. I think that's what it is. I don't respect. Yes. I have active contempt. Active contempt. David Montgomery or Najee Harris? What kind of question is that? Okay? I understand. Evan, you're in the chat a lot. I get it. You're great. Thank you and everyone, subscribe, like, all those things. And Evan's, he's in here a lot. But Evan, we need to teach you how to fish. Okay? So when you go and you look at just even the box score schedule for this week, and you see a 51-point total, and you see a team at home, and you know that David Montgomery is the goal line back and going to be the carry leader for his team, you cannot bench him just based on the implied point upside touchdown equity alone. Najee Harris is in the opposite situation. He's going against the Broncos with a 36-point total. Their implied points for their teams are almost double for the Lions. In fact, when the Lions go out and score 36 and the Steelers score 18 and the Lions exactly double up the Steelers, no one would be surprised. And it's a hell of a lot harder for Najee to get there with a similar skill set than it is for David Montgomery. I mean, basically, they're the same. Just one guy's on the Lions, one guy's on the Steelers. One guy has Jalen Warren, a more explosive satellite back who gets less touches. It's the same thing. But you get the guy that's way more explosive. And David Montgomery even had an earlier ADP. This isn't like, I have to come to terms with a player I overdrafted. You didn't overdraft David Montgomery. No, he exceeded expectations. There should be no questions about your starting David Montgomery this week. None. All these Malik Neighbors questions. Jesus. Oh, God. London or Neighbors? Okay. What do you think the answer is? In unison. Everybody in the chat. Maybe you're alone. Maybe you're gardening. Maybe you're in your car listening to this. In unison. Let's all say it together. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Malik Neighbors is the answer. Now, where is the tension point? Where would you consider benching Malik Neighbors? And for me, it's right at George Pickens, Brandon Ayuk. That's where it is. Ayuk is that guy. There's no Christian McCaffrey. So again, a little more reception equity now in San Francisco. Everybody wins. It's Minnesota. We're going to assume Minnesota is not the best against opposing wide receivers, even though they played well last week. Pickens is a true hyper alpha dog in a similar situation, right? He's basically a more seasoned Neighbors. So you don't need to be a hero and play Neighbors over Pickens. Then the question becomes, what about Godwin? Because we all want to play Godwin this week. I would play Godwin over Neighbors. If I had to, so what I have to do sometimes on this show, just so everybody knows, is yes, I take questions from the chat, but sometimes I have to invent my own dichotomies because I can sometimes do a better job than any of you people. Why hostility to the audience? These are the people that love you. Why do this, Podfather? Why? Because it's funny. Anyway, this is what's interesting. This is where it's like, I drafted this guy in the 3rd round. With Neighbors in some expert leagues, I drafted him in the 2nd round. Crazy. The 120 at the 212, 24th pick. Taking Godwin in the 5th, 6th round, you're playing Godwin because this is the game. Again, we want to play Neighbors. This is the game to play Neighbors. I understand that. But you need to take a step back. Is the game of the year for Godwin, it's the game of the year also for Neighbors, but Godwin is in the ripe situation of all. We also got more information in week 1. If we were to redraft them, Godwin and Neighbors would have similar ADPs. Don't forget about that. So now where you drafted them is now nullified. Now it's just about, on the merits, what game do you want exposure to? And it's got to be Godwin. That would be the question. That's everybody below Godwin is benched in favor of Neighbors. That's how I think about it. J.K. Dobbins or Stephon Diggs? Oh, baby. This is a good one. Typically, like we saw with like a little Jaleel McLaughlin versus, fringy wide receiver X, I would go McLaughlin, or like, upside wide receiver X, McLaughlin or Iosova, someone like that. I got to go McLaughlin in those situations. I went McLaughlin. I'd even go McLaughlin over Calvin Ridley, right? So I like to lean on a guy I know I'm going to get 10 to 15 touches, whereas the receiver, who knows, Depending on game plan and game flow, receivers can get shut out. But in this particular case, I got to go Diggs. Diggs against the Bears, I got to think that Jalen Johnson, it's conceivable that he circles Diggs on his calendar. Like he has a little calendar with all the number one receivers, and he thinks he's going to be matched up with Diggs. If I'm the actual defensive coordinator for the Texans, I'm going to want him to play Nico Collins. Just take out the alpha receiver, and then we can game plan against this Diggs-Dell, flanker slot combo on the right side. Big time implied total there for the Texans. You got to think that the Bears defense is quality as it is. They've really stepped up and improved the personnel across the board. They're not going to be able to stop the Texans. So there, I'm just going to go Diggs. You can't bench Diggs at this point. I love what we're seeing with Dobbins, but we'll just see how the touch distribution plays out for one more week. You're playing Diggs. It's not like you decided to go with some fringe option that you got creative. You're talking to a guy in the bar and you were like, yeah, actually, you know what? That's a good point. And it is the Panthers, right? I understand that the Chargers are 7-point favorites, but the game total is sub 40. So this is a pukey game. So if you look at a pukey game and you're like Charbonnet, Dobbins, these are very similar situations, right? I lean Charbonnet because I want the touches, but it's a pukey game. So you're not giving up a lot. You're probably not giving up a lot of fantasy points. Now, it's possible that Dobbins gets all the touchdowns in the game. It's just, I don't see it. I like McConkey. I like McConkey this week. He's the guy I'm really focused on. In these games where they get dragged into the mud, still the number one receiver likes to get there. The running back struggle, the quarterback struggle, but the number one receiver tends to get there. Favorite Rams receiver to fill in for Puka? I thought it was Tyler Johnson. It's Tyler Johnson. I started my whole Might Have Mansion monologue basically berating myself for not truthering for Tyler Johnson more vigorously. So Jahan Dotson becomes interesting, right? Jahan Dotson, I think we asked earlier, like who else, right? Who else is there? And in Philadelphia, it's Jahan Dotson, man. I think he becomes an interesting play in the event of an A.J. Brown injury. We'll see, right? We'll see. Can you imagine? That's actually not a bad play to pick up Jahan Dotson and just have him just in case. I'm just a little worried that he was dropped, right? Well, he wasn't dropped. He was. He was traded. But it was a late pick. It was basic. They didn't want him. Why didn't Washington want him? What's wrong with him? He looks like a perfectly fine flanker receiver in the league. I think you got to pick him up and put him on your bench if you have A.J. Brown and try to play A.J. Brown and then pivot to Jahan Dotson. And if you have both Mooney and Dotson, I would go with Dotson. I would go with the guy that we know is probably going to be on the better offense with more opportunities. There's not a huge difference between Dotson and Mooney, though the NFL thinks there is, which is what worries me. But still, I like Dotson there. Wow. There's just so many questions in here. It's absolutely unbelievable. Ingram or Taysom? Is there a question about Ingram? Ingram is going to have a great year. You got to keep going back to Ingram. Evan Ingram is one of the few players we have that we know that we can play with confidence at the tight end position. Let's see. I'll tell you where we have Ingram ranked this week. Ingram, we have him ranked at tight end 6. What do you mean Taysom Hill? What do you mean? Taysom Hill, how disappointing was that? They didn't give Taysom Hill the opportunities inside the red zone we wanted. Those went to Jamal Williams. So this was my worry about Taysom Hill, was that they're not going to just walk away from Jamal Williams. He's a team leader. He's the heartbeat of the team, and they're not going to walk away from him. Jordan Akins is interesting. We talked to Abib Agbatoba this week. He likes Jordan Akins as the Cleveland tight end in the mix, like that tight end 2 range, somewhere in the tight end 13 to tight end 24 range. I like him maybe a little bit more than, say, Theo Johnson or Cade Otton or Jonnu Smith. Juwan Johnson got a bunch of opportunities. There was just Foster Moreau. Where was Taysom Hill? The siren song of Taysom Hill, man. We still have him at tight end 16, but you're not even going to consider him over Ingram. Get out of here. Get out of here. Stevenson or Pollard? That's a good one. I think Pollard looked great, but so did Stevenson. I think you got to go with Stevenson. We have Stevenson as a top 10 running back this week. These are the games you want. Again, I don't want to sound repetitive, but I have to, because it just seems like there are scenarios where you're all asking me questions, and it's like, okay, if you're not playing Stevenson at home against Seattle, you're never playing him. So play him. Okay? Pollard's facing the Jets. That's horrible. That's not, you got to think back to when the draft happened and you look at the schedule. Okay, I'm definitely playing Stevenson here. I definitely want to play Pollard there. This week was a Stevenson week, and then all Stevenson did was exceed expectations in week 1 with an incredible opportunity share, dominating the backfield, as we knew he always could. My God. Singletary or Najee Harris? See, there's where the rubber meets the road right there. Now the rubber, right? The rubber is meeting the road right there. And by the way, we like Zach Moss this week. I just want to let everybody know we really like Zach Moss this week. We believe, based on what happened last week, this is a team that they could easily get out to a lead against Kansas City. It's very possible. And then they turn the ball over to Zach Moss. This could happen. And this week is also a Devin Singletary week against Washington. Devin Singletary getting a big, big opportunity share. Maybe teed up for the most touches in his career this year. Not maybe. And then we saw what Washington did last week. They ended up coming into the week top 5 in fantasy points allowed to opposing running backs. They're not the pass funnel defense they used to be. I think they're a little more balanced on defense. But that's good for Devin Singletary. Devin Singletary is an RB2 this week. So you're playing Devin Singletary. That's a great question. Kyle Pitts or DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift, man. DeAndre Swift. He's, again, 68% opportunity share, something like that. Crazy. Robin Williams or Jim Carrey. Can you imagine if it was Drew Carey? How easy that would be. Robin Williams versus Jim Carrey. Very good question. Robin Williams, much more prolific career. Robin Williams did, he did the HBO specials where they raised money. Remember that? All those appearances on Johnny Carson and other late night shows. It wasn't just about the movies. And then he turned to be a dramatic actor. So he had a character that he played on stage. And Jim Carrey, he talks about that he didn't feel comfortable in his own skin because he felt like with Ace Ventura, Dumb and Dumber, that he invented this character to save his whole career, to save his stand-up career. He basically was at a crossroads in his stand-up career and then got in front of the mirror and invented this Ace Ventura character. And this is the character he would go to on stage. And it would bring the house down, right? He would just rip laughs with this Ace Ventura type character. And then Hollywood executives are there. They're at the Comedy Store and they're watching him going, oh, we can put this guy in a movie. And then he does Ace Ventura and people are like, this movie's crazy. I can't believe this movie got made. How the hell did you do this? Who produced this? This movie is insane. It takes a lot of chances. It actively annoys the audience. And yet it's art. And yet it was a hit. People loved it. And even friends of Jim Carrey couldn't believe it. They were like, that movie was a hit? How the hell did that happen? I couldn't believe like he went for it in a way that made a lot of people uncomfortable, and it worked. And Robin Williams did the exact same thing. But Robin Williams' stand-up career was more prolific. I think he did more with it. He also had a higher quality dramatic career. If we think about Good Will Hunting and Dead Poets Society, I don't think that Jim Carrey, the Eternal Happiness of a Spotless Mind, something like that. Could be wrong. I think that sounds wrong to me. The Truman Show. I quote The Truman Show all the time. I love The Truman Show. A lot of great characters that Jim Carrey put together, but also similar demons, substance abuse issues. They had to do a lot of self-medicating, these guys, because, again, they decided that, okay, what I am, just me being myself up here, isn't necessarily going to optimize my earnings and my popularity and get me to achieve where I want to go in life. I'm going to have to inhabit this character and then have essentially, it's almost voluntary schizophrenia, where it's like, who am I really? Like, I don't know who I am. I'm this person, but I'm also this person. Like, I'm a total imposter. I mean, talk about imposter syndrome. Everybody thinks I'm this guy. I'm not that guy at all. I'm playing a character, and yet I have to do it 24/7 because people think that's me. Oh, but he made millions of dollars and was super famous and dated actresses. Wah. Robin Williams is definitely the pick over Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey also awesome. Also awesome. And those that say that Jim Carrey squandered his career, they didn't get the most out of it like Robin Williams did. Well, okay, maybe. But go look at his IMDb. Go look at his IMDb. Jim Carrey had a hell of a career. He had a hell of a career and essentially opting into a mental health diagnosis, giving himself mental health problems by separating his personality from or creating a brand new personality. He gave himself a personality disorder in order to build his career to what it was. And the fact that it lasted as long as it did, we should all just be grateful. Super chats coming in. Loving it. Warren or Dawdle? That's a good question. I like that question. I think this is Dawdle time. I think we saw Zeke, and it was a Zeke game last week. I think we could be in for a Dawdle game this week. I think it's very possible. I kind of like firing up Dawdle this week again. If you drafted Dawdle, did you draft him to bench him against the Saints at home? I mean, this is a Dawdle week. You got to go Dawdle. That's basically that's what you have to think through. Okay, what am I going to do? What kind of game can play out here? The game scenario has to play out where Warren gets there. Very thin. Very thin. Flex Montgomery or Ford? Wow. We had that question already. And I went, Montgomery! We're going Montgomery. I think Ford, because we know the touches are locked in, maybe a little higher floor. But the ceiling, the touchdown ceiling, the big 30-point ceiling with the 30 fantasy points with 3 touchdowns, that possibility is so delicious for David Montgomery that we're going with that. Jaden Reed or Pollard? You're not benching Jaden Reed this week. You're not benching Jaden Reed. You're not benching Jaden Reed. I'm playing Jaden Reed. Number 1 receiver. You're playing him no matter who the quarterback is. Pollard against the Jets is a play I despise. The only thing that it has going for it is that they are at home. The Titans are at home, but this has the possibility. It's the same reason I hate playing Ridley this week. This has the possibility of a nuclear implosion for Will Levis and the entire offense. So I'm not doing it. Not doing it. I'm not doing it. Remember, the Titans got out to a huge lead against Chicago. They were up like 20 points. And they lost it, right? But that was the game. That was their 28-3 like epic loss. And Kyle Shanahan should have ran Devontae Smith more. And of all things, they should have run Tony Pollard more. But they didn't. They ran him about as much as you can, but they should have run him even more. That scenario is not going to play out this week at all. So I'm going to go Jaden Reed. Ayuk or Godwin? That's close. That's damn close. I will lean Godwin there because I think Godwin has the higher floor. There's the ceiling with that game. It's very close. Our projections have them razor close. I'm leaning Godwin because, again, I can always say to myself, I needed to see how it plays out with Brandon Ayuk. He's still getting acclimated. We'll give him another week. Why push it? I have Godwin. Think about if you were a real coach. Think about how you would make that decision. Same thing. We're riding Godwin this week. Take a couple more questions. I'm actually over on time. I can't believe this. This is amazing. You guys. I get in here, and this is like this is a total time capsule. I think that's the wrong term. I don't think I should say time capsule. But it's a time lock portal. It's made a time portal, wormhole, something. It's something where I don't understand how time is passing. This is a wormhole show where it doesn't make sense. How did an hour go by? What? Dell or Devontae Smith is a fantastic question because Devontae has all this contingent upside. If A.J. Brown misses, we know A.J. Brown's less than 100%. I am going Devontae Smith because of that possibility. Though I think this is a Dell week, I'm going Devontae Smith, but I don't love it. I don't love it. I want access to this Dell upside, but I'm going Devontae Smith. You people with these decisions. You have a 3rd-round receiver and a 5th-round receiver, and you can't start them both. It's pathetic. These leagues you're in are pathetic. Get more flex positions. God damn it. Every year add a flex position. Every year in your fantasy league add a flex position so that 3 years from now you have 5 flex positions. And is that bad? Is that bad? Wait, so explain to me why that's bad. Deontay or Tyler Johnson? Oh my God, I can't believe we're in this position. I'm going back to Deontay this week. I am going back to Deontay this week. They're at home. This feels like a Deontay week. This is like, if you're not going to play him, you drafted Deontay Johnson to start him. He had a bad week. The whole team looked horrible. Give them one more week. Give him one more week. Play him. Play him. Play Deontay. Man. Purdy or Goff this week and for the full season? Well, you're going Goff against the Buccaneers. Purdy or Goff is very interesting. I think you could just play Purdy too. I want Purdy for the rest of the year. I think Purdy's a better player. I think Purdy has slightly better weapons. Not much better. I would trust Purdy in my QB1 spot. I don't trust Goff as much. Purdy's a little more mobile. For the rest of the season, I would go Purdy, and therefore, if I could only keep one, I would just play Purdy this week as much as I want to play Goff. It's close. That's very close. B-Rob, Ladd McConkey, or London. All right, so here's the thing. I know that Ladd and London, they're both good options this week. You want to play both of them this week. But Brian Robinson is the running back, and I'm going to lean the running back, especially the running back in a situation where I'm kind of itching to play him. Like I'm itching to play Brian Robinson this week. So anytime I can talk myself into it, and if it's a couple receivers that aren't like super elite, then I'm absolutely going Brian Robinson. You're not going to be. How could you be disappointed? Only an injury could make you disappointed in playing Brian Robinson this week. Think about it. Think about it. Rachaad White or Ramondre Stevenson? Stevenson. This is the week to play Stevenson. Though this is also the week to play Ramondre. Oh my God. That's a tough question. I hate that you guys have these questions. Who is your other running back? So you also have like Bijan or something? This is what's crazy. We have Ramondre and Rachaad White essentially tied in the projections. They're both projected for 16 and a half points. Yeah, 65. 16 and a half fantasy points. As it turns out, Detroit didn't allow a lot of fantasy points to opposing running backs last week. So that's the only reason I'm going to go Ramondre. So close. So close. Again, I have Rachaad White to play him all year. This week, though, this is the week to play Stevenson. Or you never play him. Yeah, I think this is a good point by Tresner. Jim Carrey really had one decade, but Robin Williams had like 3 decades. What was that HBO comedy special that raised money? HBO comedy special. I'm gonna Google this. Robin Williams. What was the name of it? It was a weird name. What they used to host. He used to host it with Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi Goldberg used to be a comedian. That's right. And Billy Crystal. Whoopi. What was the name of it? Oh my God. This really dates me that I even know this. It's crazy. I'm mad that I know this. Billy Crystal was a staple host. Comic Relief. Comic Relief. It's a weird name. It's kind of a weird name, Comic Relief. But not a name. It's a play on Comic Relief in the movies, and then they give relief to basically raise awareness of poverty. Okay, so now I hate it. Now I hate it, as if people need to be aware. What kind of bourgeois people are you trying to, send comedy shows to that are unaware of poverty? Really? Really? What segment of the population out there is unaware? I mean, really? Okay. I guess. If you're going to go through all that trouble and have all, get all these comedians together, you'd think you may be a little more of a focused, impactful cause to get behind. Though it was good, right? He still did something, right? Like, We Are the World. You can be cynical about We Are the World, but these artists got together and they tried to make a difference. Literally, that's the line from the song. Now, they're superstar artists. They don't know actually how to make a difference, but they're just, someone puts it in front of them and it's like, hey, this could help people. And they're like, yeah, I want to help people. They genuinely want to help people. Most of them don't even believe they deserve all their money. So they're just trying to find ways that they can give it away or donate some of their time to help people. I think so many famous people are so pukey and loathsome, but I do think a lot of, like, the Comic Relief, I got to think that Whoopi and Billy Crystal and Robin Williams were doing it for the right reasons. I do. All the more reason to go Robin Williams there, Comic Relief. I could just turn it on. The guy could turn it on. That's the other thing, is like, there was a period of time, I think this is really, if put the resumes aside, clearly, like, Robin Williams could just take his resume and just dump it on the desk, slam it on the desk, and Jim Carrey has no argument, right? So just put like the all-time stats off to the side, right? So, okay, we have like Dan Marino, right? So clearly, like, you're not going to have more passing yards than Dan Marino until, like, whatever, Peyton Manning comes along. He had the numbers, just no Super Bowls, right? But Robin Williams also had some Super Bowls. That's the difference, right? He just had a quantity and quality. The body of work is unprecedented as an actor and comedian. Went to Juilliard. But here's the thing. Robin Williams would do whatever it takes, including stealing jokes, which I don't agree with. But he was so obsessed with the audience having a good time that he would debase himself to a place where Jim Carrey eventually would not go there. Jim Carrey would not turn it on certain shows because he was just done with it. He was done, right? He was done being that guy. All the way through his life, Robin Williams, when the camera was on, his priority was so with the audience that he would debase himself. He would crawl over broken glass. He would go to whatever character he could to get a laugh to the end, where Jim Carrey, not quite willing to go all the way for his entire life. And again, these guys are like comets going across the sky, and they're going to burn up in the atmosphere. But God bless them. Goff, Baker, or Fields? So funny how my first instinct is always Fields in those situations. And then I remember the matchup. I remember, like, the game scenario for Baker and Goff. And I'm like, could it be? Is it? I think I'm just going to go Goff there. I'm going to go. There's enough upside. There's enough like 4 TD upside for Goff with the high floor that it overrides just the pure upside that you're getting with Fields, because Fields has huge risk. The risk is too much. And a Goff gives you plenty of upside this week. It's a good question, though. It's a lot closer. You go to our rankings on Player Profiler, playerprofiler.com, check out the player rankings. You'll see how close it is. It's crazy close. We're way over on time. We are way over on time, man. And I'm going to get you out of here. Fields or Herbert, you're going Fields. Pittman or Christian Watson, you're going Pittman. Rachaad White or Josh Jacobs, it's Rachaad White this week, baby. All about Rachaad White. Steve Cutler in the chat telling me eventually what comic relief is. Thank you. I needed that. I needed some help this morning to get it fully situated. And not quite as sharp. That's the problem. I like to do shows around 11 o'clock in the morning when I'm sharp. I've had a couple cups of coffee. I'm good to go. Right? You get the nootropic benefit of the caffeine. Rolling out of bed and doing a show, not quite as sharp. Jaden Reed or Jerome Ford, full PPR. That's where the rubber meets the road. Can't do Jaden Reed there. I'm going to go running back. If it's a guy that is getting all the touches in not the worst game situation, I'm going to go with the running back there. Robin Williams or Bill Murray, I still think it's Robin Williams. There's an unbelievable interview where Quentin Tarantino breaks down the difference between Chevy Chase and Bill Murray. So go to YouTube, type in Quentin Tarantino, Bill Murray, Chevy Chase, and he explains the difference between Bill Murray and Chevy Chase and why he actually respects Chevy Chase more as an entertainer than Bill Murray. That Bill Murray really was playing the role that every 80s producer wanted, which was curmudgeon for the first 2 acts of the movie, and then everything works out in the end and he becomes a likable guy. That's every Bill Murray movie, pretty much. Every Bill Murray movie in the 80s. And so you love Bill Murray, and I do. There's stories from Chicago, people in bars. Bill Murray walks in. He's the life of the party, man of the people. Everyone loves him. He's a great guy. Except he is kind of, difficult to work with. But if you're just a random fan, he might come up to you and flick your nose, or or get it right up in your face, and just for a laugh, and then people have these experiences in Chicago all the time, where Bill Murray, got right in my face and pointed at me. And freaked me out, and then he just walked away, right? Or he came up to me and gave me an apple or something crazy. This is Bill Murray. Great, cool guy. But then you're like, wait a second. I never realized that he was essentially just playing a cardboard cutout character in every movie. He was doing it to the best that it can be done, but it was the same, character development, character arc in every movie. And you're like, oh, wait a second. That's not as cool as what? So Quentin Tarantino does that. Quentin Tarantino, whenever he's on, whenever he gets interviewed, I watch it, because he always he takes you behind the curtain. And he gives you a little nugget here and there about the movie business, about a particular actor, or about how the world works. And you're like, oh, shit, that's enlightening. He's an enlightening guy. He's an enlightening spirit. I like Quentin Tarantino a lot. Stroud or Jaden? Oh, Jaden Daniels, right? I've been fielding so many Jaden Reed questions. That's a tricky one. That's a good problem to have. You people with these problems you have. Why do you have these problems? You're deciding between 2 top 7 quarterbacks. Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels is a top 5 quarterback this week. That's what he is. You got to get him in there. Brock or Stafford? Dude, you want Brock, man. No Christian McCaffrey. That means more Brock. London or Worthy? You got to go London. Going back to London. Yeah, a lot of Jaden Reed, Jerome Ford questions. It's all about Jerome Ford. Javonte Williams, Bucky Irving, Jalen Warren. Woof. I'm actually going to go begrudgingly Javonte Williams there just because he is technically the starter. Bucky Irving had a long run, a little bit of a fluky rushing production last week for Bucky Irving. I don't think that's going to continue. I think Javonte versus Bucky is an interesting dilemma. I'm just going to go Javonte and hate it. I'm going to go Javonte and hate it. That's pretty much it. Wandale or JSN? That's a great question. What a great question by JP. Same guy, right? Isn't JSN devolving into Wandale Robinson? Isn't that really what's happening? I think this is the week to play Wandale. Fuck it. Play Wandale. It's a terrible week to play JSN, so I'm going to go Wandale there. And last one, Alvin Kamara. Positive Mike. Alvin Kamara, DeAndre Swift, full flex. Alvin Kamara. I guess that's pretty easy. Roshan Johnson or Michael Wilson. That's a joke. That's a joke by Alex Incognito. Very funny. Very funny. Okay, so what late round players in round 15 through 20 were you drafting and liking that hit in spectacular fashion? Tell us, Alex. You tell us. Okay? Okay, real last one. Devontae, Godwin, or Jerome Ford? I'm going to have to go to the flex tab for this one. This is a tricky one. I think it's probably going to tell me Jerome Ford if I had to guess. Yeah, this is a good one. It feels so much sexier to go with Godwin in that big shootout. It does. Certainly, how do you go wrong with Devontae Smith, knowing that A.J. Brown's not 100%? I get it. But this is, again, we're teaching you how to fish. When in doubt, if you have a running back that has been declared a bell cow, almost regardless of the situation, unless you're talking about one of the uber elite wide receivers, you go with that running back every time because he has long touchdown runs in his range of outcomes. He has a nice floor of 15-plus touches. So you have both the floor and the ceiling that you're enjoying, whereas with any wide receiver, some of these floor games come out of nowhere, and you're like, I was sure this receiver was going to get me 15 fantasy points this week. He gave me 6. That's the risk. So you get the higher floor with the running back, and you're not giving up much in terms of ceiling. That's why the answer this week for all these dilemmas that include Jerome Ford is almost always play Jerome Ford.